Imagine it's a Tuesday morning in late 2026. You wake up, grab your phone and check your banking app. The number is there. Your savings, your checking. It looks exactly the same as it did last night. But when you walk down the street to grab a coffee, the price on the chalkboard has changed. Yesterday it was $6. Today it's $18. You laugh. It has to be a joke, right? A hipster prank. But the barista isn't laughing. She looks tired. She tells you their supplier just updated the chaotic delivery fees an hour ago. You tap your card, declined. Not because you don't have the money, but because the bank has frozen withdrawals to prevent a panic. That feeling in the pit of your stomach, that is the sound of the music stopping. We have been living in the greatest economic fairy tale in human history. For the last 80 years, we've operated on the assumption that lines on a graph only go up, that debt doesn't matter as long as we owe it to ourselves, and that we can print our way out of any problem. But the laws of mathematics are indifferent to our delusions. The engine of the global economy isn't just sputtering, it is being disassembled bolt by bolt while we are still driving the car down the highway at 100 miles per hour. In this video, we aren't just looking at stock charts. We are going to look at the 7 structural pillars of our civilization that are crumbling simultaneously. We're talking about a debt bomb that would make a frantic gambler blush, a demographic collapse that threatens to empty entire nations, and a geopolitical divorce that will change everything you buy, sell, and eat. Buckle up. This isn't fear-mongering, this is just the math. 1. The $315 trillion debt bomb. The math that doesn't math. Let's start with the elephant in the room. Actually, it's not an elephant anymore, it's a kaiju eating the room. As of the latest reports from the Institute of International Finance, IIF, the total global debt, that's governments, businesses and households combined, has hit a record $315 trillion. Let me put that number into perspective for you. If you stacked $315 trillion bills, you wouldn't just reach the moon, you would reach the sun and come back, and go to the sun again. It is a number so large it effectively loses all meaning to the human brain. We just nod and say, wow, that's a lot, like we're looking at the Grand Canyon. But here is the scary part. Global GDP is only about $105 trillion. Imagine you have a friend named Steve. Steve makes $100,000 a year, but Steve owes the bank $300,000. Now, Steve could be okay if his interest rate was 0%. He could just pay the minimums forever and die before the bank realizes he's broke. That is exactly what the world did from 2008 to 2021. We lived in the era of zero interest rate policy, ZIRP. Money was free. Governments borrowed like drunken sailors because, hey, it cost nothing to service the debt. But then, inflation showed up, uninvited, drunk, and breaking the furniture. Central banks had to raise interest rates to kick inflation out. Suddenly, the interest on that $315 trillion isn't zero anymore. It's 4%, 5%, 7%. The United States government now spends more on interest payments for its debt than it spends on the entire defense budget. Read that again. We are spending more to pay off old credit card bills than we are on the tanks, jets, and soldiers that supposedly keep the hegemony running. And here is the kicker, the part that should keep you awake at night. The Minsky moment. Named after economist Hyman Minsky, this is the psychological tipping point where investors suddenly realize that the borrower, in this case the USA, Japan, Europe, has absolutely no way of paying back the principal. The assets are just IOUs. When that realization hits, it doesn't happen gradually. It happens all at once. Asset values collapse, credit dries up, and the only way to stop it is to print more money to cover the hole, which devalues the currency even faster. It's a doom loop. We are currently borrowing money to pay the interest on the money we borrowed to fix the last crisis. It's a Ponzi scheme. If Bernie Madoff did this, he'd be in jail. When the global central banks do it, they call it quantitative easing. But wait, I know what you're thinking. They'll just reset the system. They'll introduce a central bank digital currency, CBDC, and wipe the slate clean. Maybe. But the transition from here to there isn't a peaceful software update. It's usually marked by hyperinflation, social unrest, and the evaporation of the middle class's savings. Look at Argentina, or Lebanon, or Sri Lanka. These aren't hypothetical scenarios. These are modern countries where the currency effectively went to zero. In Lebanon, people were robbing banks to get their own money out. The global north thinks it's immune to this. It isn't. We just have a bigger credit limit. And we just maxed it out. 2. The demographic winter. A world without workers. If the debt crisis is the heart attack that kills the economy instantly, this next point is the cancer that kills it slowly, painfully, and inevitably. There is a fundamental rule of economics that is impossible to cheat: GDP growth, workforce growth, plus productivity growth. You need people to make stuff, and you need people to buy stuff. If you run out of people, you run out of economy. Welcome to the demographic winter. For the first time since the Black Death in the 1300s, the human population in key industrial nations is set to shrink. And it's not because of a virus or a war, it's because we just stopped having kids. Let's look at the canary in the coal mine, South Korea. South Korea currently has a fertility rate of roughly 0.72. To keep a population stable, you need a rate of 2.1. A rate of 0.72 doesn't just mean a slight decline, it means mathematical extinction. In 2 generations, for every 100 South Koreans today, there will be roughly 4 descendants. Hey, quick pause. If you're enjoying this cheery tour of the apocalypse, do me a favour and hit that subscribe button. It helps me afford the canned beans and gold bars I'm stockpiling in my basement. Also, let me know in the comments. Do you think the debt crisis or the population collapse will hit us first? Okay, back to the nightmare. It's not just Korea. Italy is closing schools because there are no children to fill them. Germany is shrinking. But the big one, the one that really breaks the global economy, is China. For 40 years, China was the factory of the world. They provided cheap labour that kept inflation down for everyone in the West. You could buy a toaster for $9 at Walmart because a 20-year-old in Shenzhen assembled it. But China lied about their numbers. Recent leaks and revised data suggest China overcounted their population by upwards of 100 million people. That's an entire Mexico that just doesn't exist. China is now aging faster than any society in human history. They are facing the 4-2-1 problem. One working-age child has to support 2 parents and 4 grandparents. Think about the economic implications of that. 1. Labour shortage. When workers become scarce, their wages go up. That means the era of cheap goods is over. The $9 toaster becomes a $45 toaster. 2. Asset deflation. Old people don't buy houses, they sell them to pay for retirement care. When you have millions of sellers and no young buyers, real estate values crash. 3. Pension collapse. Social security systems, in the US, Europe and Asia, are built on the assumption that there are 5 workers for every 1 retiree. By 2050, in many places that ratio will be 2-1. The math is physically impossible. We are moving from a world of abundance of labour to scarcity of labour. In the past, capital, money, was king and labour was cheap. In the next 20 years, capital will be worthless because of inflation printing, and labour will be the most precious resource on earth. If you're a young person watching this, you actually have leverage. If you are a retiree hoping the government will fund your golden years, well, you better hope robots get really good at changing bedpans really fast. Speaking of robots, you might say, but AI will solve this. Robots will do the work. We'll get to AI in a minute, but spoiler alert, AI doesn't consume. Robots don't buy houses, they don't buy diapers, and they don't pay income tax. An economy of robots producing goods for no consumers isn't an economy. It's just a warehouse full of stuff nobody wants. The demographic collapse ensures that the consumption-based economic model we built the entire 20th century on is officially dead. We just haven't held the funeral yet. 3. De-Globalization and the end of cheap. Remember the world of 2019? It seems like a lifetime ago. Back then, if you ordered a phone case from AliExpress, it arrived in 3 weeks for 2. We lived in a world of hyper-globalization. The premise was simple. We don't care who makes it, as long as it's cheap and it arrives on time. Politics didn't matter. We traded with dictators, democracies, and everyone in between because money has no ideology. Well, that party's over. The police arrived, busted the keg, and now everyone is going home to their own neighbourhoods. We are witnessing the rapid disintegration of the global order that has stood since 1945. This is the Great Divorce. Let's play a game. Imagine you are the CEO of Apple. For 20 years, your job was easy. Design in California, assemble in China, sell everywhere. Efficient, cheap. Now, imagine the US government bans you from selling your best chips to China. Then, China retaliates by banning the export of gallium and germanium, rare earth metals you need to make screens and batteries. Suddenly your supply chain isn't just expensive, it's a minefield. This is happening right now. It's called fragmentation. The world is splitting into two distinct economic blocs. The West, G7 plus allies. The US, Europe, Japan, Australia. The East Global South, BRICS plus, China, Russia, India, Brazil, Iran, Saudi Arabia. Why does this matter to your wallet? Because efficiency is being replaced by resilience. When you move a factory from China to Mexico or Ohio, a process called reshoring or friendshoring, it costs more. A lot more. American workers don't work for $2 an hour. They have unions, safety standards, and they like to, eat. This creates structural inflation. The days of 2% inflation are gone because the mechanism that created them, cheap foreign labour plus cheap Russian energy, is gone. The sanctions backfire. We need to talk about the weaponization of the dollar. When the US froze Russia's central bank assets in 2022, it sent a shockwave through the world. Not because of the morality of the war, that's a different debate, but because of the financial precedent. Every country outside the G7 looked at that and said, wait, if we disagree with Washington, they can just delete our savings. The result? The fastest shift away from the US dollar in history. Central banks are buying gold at record paces, especially China. Saudi Arabia is considering selling oil in yuan. When countries stop buying US Treasury bonds to store their wealth, who funds the US deficit? Nobody. We have to print the difference, which causes inflation, which causes interest rates to rise, which breaks the economy. See how it's all connected? It's a giant Rube Goldberg machine of financial ruin. The choke points. It's not just politics, it's physics. Look at the Red Sea. A handful of rebels with cheap drones effectively shut down one of the world's most vital shipping lanes. Look at the Panama Canal. It's drying up due to drought. You're going to see shortages become a regular part of your vocabulary again. Not just toilet paper, but weird stuff. Antibiotics, car sensors, fertilizer. Let me ask you guys, have you noticed products staying out of stock longer in your area? Or shrinkflation, where the box is the same size but there are fewer chips inside? Drop a comment with the most ridiculous price hike you've seen lately. I saw a bag of Doritos for $7 yesterday and almost called the police. 4. The energy cliff, the physics of delusion. If demographics is the body and debt is the blood, then energy is the food. Nothing moves, grows, or computes without energy. We are currently walking into an energy crisis that is entirely self-inflicted. It stems from a misunderstanding of physics and a surplus of wishful thinking. Here is the uncomfortable truth. The global economy is addicted to cheap, dense energy. For 100 years, that was oil, coal, and gas. We have decided, rightly or wrongly, to transition away from these sources to green energy, wind and solar. The problem? We're trying to do a 50-year transition in 10 years, and we're destroying the old system before the new system is ready to take the load. This is causing what economists call Greenflation. Let's look at the numbers. To build a wind farm or an electric vehicle, EV, you need copper, a lot of copper. An EV uses 3-4 times more copper than a gas car. You also need lithium, cobalt, and nickel. Goldman Sachs and other analysts have pointed out that there simply aren't enough mines currently in operation or development to meet the net zero 2030 targets. It takes 10-15 years to permit and build a new copper mine. We need the copper now. So what happens when demand triples, because everyone wants EVs, and supply stays flat, because we haven't opened new mines? The price skyrockets. This makes the green transition incredibly expensive. Energy prices go up, and since energy is an input for everything, farming, trucking, manufacturing, the price of everything goes up. The underinvestment trap. Because governments and ESG, environmental, social and governance scores have demonized fossil fuels, investment in new oil and gas exploration has crashed. Companies are terrified to spend billions finding new oil if the government threatens to ban it in 5 years. So they stop drilling, supply shrinks. But guess what? The world still uses 100 million barrels of oil a day. When supply drops and demand stays high, you get 150 barrel oil. And here is the kicker. Food is energy. Modern agriculture is basically a process of turning natural gas, fertilizer, and diesel, tractors transport, into calories. If energy prices double, food prices double. It is that simple. We're creating a scenario where energy becomes a luxury good. In Europe, we've already seen deindustrialization. Factories in Germany, chemical plants, steel mills are shutting down permanently because they cannot afford the electricity to run. They are moving to the US or China. Imagine a world where you have to choose between heating your home and charging your car. A world where rolling blackouts aren't a third world problem, but a Tuesday night in California or Texas. We are hitting the energy cliff. The cheap, easy-to-get oil is gone. The cheap renewables are intermittent, the sun doesn't always shine. We are entering a gap, a valley of death, where energy is scarce, unreliable and expensive, and an economy cannot grow without cheap energy. It shrinks. 5. The AI displacement, the white-collar apocalypse. Okay, so the debt is exploding. We have no workers, we can't trade with our neighbours, and energy is expensive. But wait, there's a saviour: artificial intelligence. Tech bros will tell you that AI is going to save the economy by creating massive productivity gains. And technically they are right, but they are leaving out the part about who gets those gains. Spoiler, it's not you. For the last 200 years, technology has generally helped the working class. A tractor helped a farmer do more work. A computer helped an accountant calculate faster. The human was still the operator. Generative AI is different. It is not a tool, it is a replacement. We are staring down the barrel of a white-collar apocalypse. We aren't talking about robots replacing truck drivers, though that's coming too. We are talking about the complete obsolescence of the junior employee. Think about it. Why would a company hire a junior copywriter, a junior coder, or a junior paralegal for $60K a year? Plus benefits, when ChatGPT 7, or whatever version we're on, can do that job instantly for $20 a month. But humans need to check the work, you say? Sure. So one senior editor checks the work of the AI. Instead of a team of 10 people, you now have a team of 1. The economic impact. Our entire economy is built on the middle class. People who sit in offices, send emails, make PowerPoints, and buy houses. If AI automates 30% of white-collar tasks, a conservative estimate by Goldman Sachs, that is 300 million jobs globally exposed to automation. What happens to consumer spending when 30% of the middle class loses their high-paying jobs and has to compete for service industry gigs? Wage compression. Everyone floods into the jobs AI can't do. Plumbers, nurses, electricians. Supply of labour goes up, wages go down. Tax revenue collapse. Income tax is the government's main piggy bank. If high earners are replaced by software, who pays the taxes to service the $315 trillion debt? See, it all circles back. Inequality on steroids. The owners of the AI, the shareholders, keep all the profit. The workers get $0. This is the ultimate deflationary force. Prices might come down because software is cheap, but it won't matter if you don't have a paycheck. We are racing toward a future where a small elite owns the robot's AI and a massive underclass survives on what? Universal Basic Income, UBI. And where does the money for UBI come from? The government, which is broke and can't borrow any more. Do you see the trap? Fun fact, did you know that during the Industrial Revolution, the Luddites weren't actually against technology? They were skilled artisans who realized the machines would produce lower quality goods and destroy their livelihood. They were right. We're all Luddites now. We're handing the keys to the economy over to an intelligence we barely understand. Right at the moment our social safety nets are breaking. 6. The everything bubble and the real estate trap. If you think 2008 was bad, let me introduce you to its ugly older brother, the commercial real estate CRE crisis. Here is the situation. You know all those gleaming skyscrapers in New York, San Francisco and London. The ones that define the skyline. They're currently financial coffins. Due to the work-from-home revolution triggered by the pandemic and solidified by everyone realizing commuting sucks, office vacancy rates in major cities have hit record highs. In some places, vacancy is nearly 30%. Who cares, you might ask? Let the rich landlords suffer. If only it were that simple. See, those landlords didn't pay cash for those skyscrapers. They borrowed money, trillions of it. And who did they borrow it from? Small and regional banks. We are looking at a wall of maturities. About $1.5 trillion in commercial real estate loans are coming due in the next couple of years. These loans need to be refinanced. But here is the trap. 1. The building is empty, so it's making less money. 2. Interest rates are higher, so the new loan payments will be double or triple what they were before. 3. The building's value has crashed, so the bank can't even foreclose to make their money back. This is a solvency crisis. It's why we saw banks like Silicon Valley Bank and First Republic collapse. They are the tip of the iceberg. There are hundreds of zombie banks walking around right now, technically insolvent, just waiting for the reality of these bad loans to hit their balance sheets. The residential nightmare. While office buildings are empty, houses are unobtainable. This is the K-shaped housing market. If you bought a house before 2022, you locked in a 3% mortgage. You're golden. You are never moving. If you're trying to buy now, you are looking at 7% or 8% rates on inflated prices. This has frozen the market. Nobody is selling because they don't want to lose their cheap mortgage rate. Nobody is buying because they can't afford the payments. We have created a feudal system where we have a landed gentry, people who bought pre-2022, and a permanent class of renters, everyone else. Historically, when a generation is locked out of property ownership, unable to build equity or have a stake in their community, social stability evaporates. You don't wash a rental car and you don't fight for a society where you own nothing. The wealth effect. Most of the wealth in the global economy is just paper gains in real estate and stocks. It's the everything bubble. Central banks blew this bubble to make us feel rich. But if real estate corrects to match actual incomes, trillions of dollars of wealth vanish overnight. When your house creates more wealth in a year than your job does, your economy is broken. When that house stops gaining value, the illusion breaks. 7. The death of the social contract. This brings us to the final and most dangerous collapse, the collapse of trust. An economy is not just math, it is a confidence game. It is a shared belief that if I work hard, I will get ahead, that the rules are fair, that the money in my pocket will buy bread tomorrow. When that belief dies, the economy doesn't just recede, it burns. We are witnessing the death of the social contract. Look at the statistics on trust. Trust in media, all-time low. Trust in government, all-time low. Trust in the financial system, non-existent. Why? Because the public isn't stupid. They saw what happened over the last 15 years. They saw banks gamble away the economy and get bailed out. They saw billionaires double their wealth during the pandemic while small businesses were forced to close. They see inflation eating their grocery budget while politicians tell them the economy is stronger than ever. This disconnect between the economy, the stock market, and the economy, or your life, is fueling radicalization everywhere. Left, right, center, it doesn't matter. Everyone is angry. The polarization trap. In a collapsing economy, politics becomes a zero-sum game. For me to win, you have to lose. This leads to populism, protectionism, and eventually conflict. History teaches us a very dark lesson. Economic depressions lead to political extremism. The 1920s hyperinflation in Germany gave us the 1930s rise of fascism. The 2008 crash gave us the Occupy movement and the Tea Party, which morphed into the polarized chaos we have today. As resources get scarcer due to debt, demographics, and de-globalization, the fight over those resources gets nastier. We are entering a period of resource nationalism and internal conflict. The global economy requires cooperation to function. We are moving into an era of confrontation. Final thoughts, what now? So, the debt is unpayable. The population is shrinking. The supply chains are breaking. The robots are taking the jobs. The planet is running out of cheap energy. And nobody trusts anyone. I know, it's a lot. If you feel overwhelmed, that is a perfectly rational response to irrational times. But I didn't make this video to tell you to dig a bunker and give up. I made it to tell you that the normalcy bias is your enemy. The world of 1990-2020 is gone. It is not coming back. We are entering a transition period, a historical winter. But humanity has survived winters before. The economy is collapsing, yes. But collapsing is just another word for correcting. The system we built was unsustainable. It needs to break so something real can take its place. So, what do? 1. Get out of debt. If the system breaks, you don't want to be the one owing it money. 2. Build real skills. In a world of AI, be the person who can fix things, build things, or heal things. Physical reality is the only thing that can't be deleted. 3. Localize your life. The global supply chain is fragile. Your local farmer's market is not. Build relationships with your neighbours. Community is the only true insurance policy. 4. Reject the FOMO. Stop trying to keep up with a lifestyle that was built on cheap credit and cheap energy. Simplify. The global economy is a Titanic. It has hit the iceberg. The band is still playing, and the captain is still yelling that the ship is unsinkable. You don't have to go down with the ship. You just have to find a lifeboat. The years ahead are going to be chaotic, volatile, and difficult, but they are also going to be real. The fairy tale is over. Welcome to the real world. Good luck. If you want to understand how to prepare financially for this shift, wait for our upcoming video here where I break down the assets that historically survive hyperinflation. And if you think I'm crazy, tell me why in the comments. I read them all. See you in the next one.